Welcome to the Political Insider. Now we understand that all the talk is about the Madlanga Commission. What we are going to do on the Political Insider is we will be giving an update as the information comes out in more sort of usable chunks. At the moment, the information is very, it's going to come through slowly. Believe me, you don't have to watch all of that every day. We'll summarize it for you and give you updates. But let's talk today about something that's where we have created a rod for our own back, as they say. South Africa thought it was a good idea to get involved with the G20. Let me explain to you what the G20 is in case you don't know. It's meant to be a collection of the world's 20 biggest economies. These are the 20 richest countries in the world. Somehow South Africa managed to inveigle our way onto there, even though we are not even in the top 50. Now, those countries, when they hold a summit, are in the places that are rich countries, well-serviced. They've got metro trains, they've got well-documented tourist destinations, airplane routes, everything works. Along comes South Africa, where we are trying to be the B20, which is the bottom 20 countries of the world, where everything is breaking. And on top of it, in a moment of real inspiration, the government decides to hold the summit meeting, which is meant to be the leaders of all these countries, in Johannesburg. If we were going to do it, we should have at least tried to send them to Cape Town, or a city that half works. But this is turning into a nightmare because Johannesburg is a complete and utter mess, and you would not want South Africa put on show, especially when you've got the leaders of all of these rich countries coming to the country. So in Parliament, they hold a committee meeting about the state of readiness for this G20 Summit, which happens in November of this year. And it turns out that we only have 153 million rand shortfall for the summit. In other words, we need 153 million rand just to put on this show. But it's not like it starts at zero. There's already been a massive sum of money that has been spent, apparently, on readiness for this whole meeting, this whole summit. Now, you wouldn't say it if you lived in Johannesburg, because the place is still as derelict and bombed out as it always was. So I'm not sure where any money has been spent, but apparently there have been sponsors, and Treasury have put money in, and so has the Department of International Relations. They've put in money, and that's already been spent. As I say, where? I have no idea, because we still have no streetlights, potholes, the airport's not well marked, the road markings are not there. I mean, we laughed when the mayor of Johannesburg said, no, they'll just have G20 routes, in other words, roads that they will fix up, where these guys will go through and everything will look like it works. But if you have to go one street down, it's broken. We thought, oh no, what a terrible idea. Well, now we're not even going to get that right. And then I realized where the problem may lie, and that is that the committee that this G20 organizing committee reported to is run by none other but that well-known ANC, heavyweight, former Premier of the Northwest Province, Supra Mahumapelo, who was a real benefactor of Jacob Zuma. And this was a guy who wanted to, and succeeded in bringing South Africa to its knees. Now he's the guy trying to make South Africa this place that you want to put on show to the top 20 countries in the world. So let's go back to the summit. The chief director, David Malcolmson, says there's concern about the infrastructure in Johannesburg and Gauteng. Really? Have you been living under a rock, Mr. Malcolmson? The whole world knows what Johannesburg looks like. Now you register your concern? Are you joking? Even President Ramaphosa, who lives in Johannesburg, said, I'm shocked, which in normal language means this place is completely and utterly stuffed. You're concerned? Really? What I also loved is the contribution of the other parties that were on that committee, notably the EFF and Mkhonto we Sizwe, where they don't really care about our readiness. What they're really concerned about are budget shortfalls. The EFF MP, Nkobile Mhlongo, and Wesley Douglas from MK Party said they're horrified that there are funding shortfalls. In other words, give us the money. We'll make sure that somebody paints a line somewhere. This thing is a terrible idea, right? We should have passed. We should have just got the word out that we will attend but not host. Believe me, the richest countries in the world want to talk about rich country things. They don't want to talk about poor country things. They don't want to see children with flies in their eyes. They don't want to stop at a traffic light, should it be working, to see people dancing on crates or beggars, faking a limp. No, we are meant to show the world that we're a rich country. We say we're one of the top 20 countries in the world. And they're going to see this mess. Oh, dear God, are you joking? We've got exactly 2 months to fix this up. There is absolutely 0.0% chance of us getting it ready in time. But they'll find money. But believe me, there'll be nothing that will make this country proud or improve our standing in the world. You remember that wonderful gentleman, former deputy president of the country, Didi Mabuza? He died earlier on. Well, it turns out that his heirs are now fighting over his 44 million rand estate. I always love it, how people that earn a fraction of that kind of money end up with such a big estate. But yet, Parliament and Oversight and the ANC Renewal Committee can't do a basic lifestyle audit. The guy has been a civil servant for nearly 30 years. He dies, and then he ends up with this massive estate. Now turns out his wives weren't really his wives. He was never legally married. That means his daughter's not going to be in his will. It is no less than the catastrophe that those people deserve. So, well done, Didi Mabuza. To your last moment, even beyond the grave, you can't do a job right. I'd like to switch attention quickly to the questioning of our new, do we call him Minister of Police, Feroz Kachalia, or Assistant Minister of Police, or Temporary Minister of Police? Because we've got another Minister of Police and we're paying for him to be at home. But anyway, Feroz Kachalia, the guy who used to be in Gauteng and did nothing of consequence here, but now apparently is good enough to run the police service nationally, had to answer to a committee in Parliament. And he claimed that the Hawks are prioritizing the assassination of Babita Deokaran. Now, for those of you that don't know, Babita Deokaran worked for the Gauteng government, and she flagged 850 million rand that was stolen from Tembisa Hospital. And of course, the Hawks did nothing. And only after a journalist got hold of, that's Jeff Wicks, and we'll soon be interviewing him on the State of the Nation, so look out for that, wrote the book about why she had to die, because she knew too much, where he showed that they went and got her laptop and her phone to find that the Hawks hadn't even switched it on. They'd done nothing. He got all the information just by switching on her laptop and looking on her phone. But the Hawks could do nothing. And yet this liar, Professor Kachalia, said that the Hawks are prioritizing this assassination. He's lying. Because if they were prioritizing this, they would have looked at her laptop. Now, just at least we've got somebody there, and he says he says something, as opposed to the usual sort of thing where we wouldn't even be asking these kind of questions. Obviously, the popularity of the book is causing some embarrassment. Now, remember, this happened 4 years ago. But apparently, then, just before you get too hopeful that Professor Kachalia may in fact be a breath of fresh air, he then mouthed those words that he is alarmed and he shares our outrage about this assassination. Now, I've been around the block long enough to know that when a parliamentarian in South Africa says, when a cabinet minister says, I'm alarmed or I share your outrage, that's code for he's not going to do anything. don't wait for anything to happen. It ain't going to happen. So rest in peace, Babita Deokaran. You have been absolutely left in the lurch by those that were put on this earth to protect you. It was a brave struggle, but the bad guys won in the end, and the government is going to protect them. Thank you so much for joining us on The Political Insider. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you again soon.